Welcome to the Consumer Rundown Podcast, your destination for the people, companies, and trends transforming today's consumer markets. We are your hosts. I'm Penny.
And I'm Dimitri.
On today's episode, we talk to the founders of Earth Brands, Misha Medvedev and Peter Frelinghuysen.
Recently featured in the Forbes Social Impact 30 Under 30 list, Misha and Peter launched Earth Cups in 2021 as an environmentally sustainable alternative to red Solo cups.
We discuss Earth Brands' mission to make sustainability cool and the challenges that face the sustainability industry.
Misha and Peter, thank you so much for joining us today. Can you please start by just introducing to us Earth Brands in your own words?
Yeah, sure. Earth Brands is the next generation products company that wants to displace single-use cups and other products with innovative, eco-friendly solutions.
Very cool. Was there a moment that kind of compelled you to start this company?
I mean, Penny, I wouldn't say there's one aha moment in particular. It was really a buildup. And eventually we kind of just got sick of it and decided to, take action. But, when Misha and we were at college together up at Williams College in Massachusetts, and, we'd walk to class or we'd walk to tennis practice, and we'd see thousands of, red plastic, single-use oil-based cups, littered across campus. And, that upset us. And we did some cleanups with friends, and we tried to get ahead of the issue, but we struggled to. And we thought to ourselves, look, our generation is supposed to be the one who cares about plastic pollution and cares about the environment and cares about our choices as consumers. Yet here we are going through hundreds and thousands of red Solo cups on a daily or nightly basis. And so we looked into alternatives and found that there are several out there that are better for the environment, that are better for you, and that's how we came up with the idea for Earth Brands and Earth Cups, our main product. After a couple months of testing, we launched in April of 2021.
What's the main plant ingredient in your compostable cup, if that's not a trade secret? I'm just curious.
No, it's not a trade secret. It's cornstarch and sugar is the main blend. We didn't develop it in a lab. It's been around, and again, we think it's great. It's on the production side of things, it uses a lot less energy than a typical oil-based cup. Emits less carbon, uses less water and energy and all that. And then on the post life side of things, it's much better. Obviously, when it's composted, it turns to soil pretty quickly. And even when it's not, it generally does a lot better than a polystyrene cup. So we're excited, but by no means do we think that our current Earth Cup is going to be the blend in 10 years or 5 years or 2 years. Right? And that's kind of what's exciting too. Like we're constantly learning and reading and innovating and testing and working with material scientists, and trying to come up with new blends and new materials and new products that, are even eco-friendlier and will resonate even more with consumers and, help their behavior, help change their behavior in a positive way.
Yeah, super cool. Cornstarch and sugar are two very commonly used ingredients in Chinese food. So who would have thought that you could make such good cups with it?
How did you go from identifying the problem to executing the solution?
To tell you the truth, like when we identified the problem, we didn't know much about material science. We didn't know much about, composting. We didn't know much about plant-based. And we did a lot of research in the early days. We said, okay, if we're going to come out with a product that's actually going to compete with these, plastics manufacturers and with these, semi-iconic American, college brands, we're going to have to be smart about it. And, we did research, we read up on all the different types of materials. We read about how, recycling in the US, the infrastructure is really poor, and that most types of plastic are pretty harmful and obviously rely on petroleum. And, we picked the one that we thought was kind of the best and had the best chance of scaling and resonating with consumers, and from an environmental standpoint was the most kind of soundproof, and we went with it. And I think from day one, and Misha can speak to this too, but we've never thought that we have or have had the perfect solution, but it's a work in progress, and we're always trying to innovate, and we're trying to work with material scientists, and we're trying to help develop and test new polymers out of algae or canola oil or mushrooms or sequestered carbon, and and ultimately have lines of cups and other things that are made out of some really cool things.
You talk about making sustainability cool, right? So like what does that mean to you? And I think in a related question too, I love to hear when you had this idea, when you approach these fraternities and you're like, hey guys, right, like we've got something for you that's like cool but also sustainable. Like how was that received? Were they like, oh yeah, super into it, or were people like, we just want
Yeah,
to drink beer, we don't really
right.
care?
Yeah, it was definitely a mixed bag, but I think we've realized, early on that in order to sell to college kids and to sell to fraternities and sororities, we were going to have to make sustainability cool and make it cool to care about it, right? So
Mm-hmm.
we knew that, in order to have conversations where it wasn't just, oh, actually we only care about drinking beer and we only care about price. We'd have to kind of elevate the conversation. We'd have to educate a little bit sometimes, take sustainability from a place where a small group of people in the margin care about it to where it's more of a mainstream issue. And of course, you see that, right? It's not Earth Brands or Earth Cups that's doing it. Everyone's doing it, which is great. And obviously there's a little, kind of a little color that gets washed out, in that process. But we've kind of tried to inspire kids to, and not just kids, any consumers, to believe that their individual purchases and their individual choices can make a difference on aggregate, which of course they can. And again, just working on trying to provide guilt-free alternatives that are cool, that are user friendly, and that don't provide ambiguous messaging around their capabilities, and are just generally better, high quality products too.
I want to add to kind of going off that last point there, like in our eyes, what it means to make sustainability cool is essentially make consumers want to use our products on a daily basis. And before Earth Cups, in our minds, sustainability and fighting climate change, a lot of what was in the news was going to protests or very political, right? And so we wanted to make it a very easy way to kind of do things on a daily basis to actually feel like you're supporting plastic pollution or whatnot. And so I think that's what kind of our whole brand is consisted of. And then also in terms of the fraternities, what was really important to us when we were doing R&D and ordering samples was that the quality of the cups wasn't affected. So, fractals wouldn't, complain about it. And so that's why we did a lot of R&D and testing to make sure that the cup held up as well as a red plastic cup. So quality wasn't the thing they would, complain about if anything. So.
Yeah, makes sense. Can you help ground our listeners in just how bad the red solo cups are? Like drop some facts on us.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think the main thing is to be clear about the different types of plastic, which a lot of people, don't know. They see a little recycling triangle on the bottom with a number in it, and
it's
people
super
don't know.
confusing.
Penny, I'll tell you, it's deliberately confusing, right? Plastics manufacturers and these large corporations, they want to, kind of keep a sense of ambiguity around their products, so that people, they see a number 6 and a triangle around it, and they say, oh, that means it's recyclable, right? And the answer is not necessarily. So obviously there's different MRFs across the country, and some accept different types of plastics than others. But polystyrene, polypropylene, these really oil-based kind of bad plastics that are so ubiquitous, are produced by companies like Solo and others. They're difficult to recycle. And even if they are recyclable, or a facility will accept them, very few of them actually get recycled. So I think I read a stat this morning that said that in, like, I think it was 20, don't quote me on this, but I think in 2014 there was about 9.5% of recycled plastic gets recycled in the US, which is
Right.
obviously really low. And then
Yeah.
in 2021, that number was actually 5%,
Oh,
which
wow.
is really not promising, right? You'd think
Yeah.
that we'd be getting better with our
Right.
recycling rates, and
Right.
we'd be getting better and stronger infrastructure and more dollars behind it. But the reality is that we're not. And that's why, Misha and I, we don't, really believe in the future of recycling. We believe in the future of innovation into the material science side of things. And we believe in closed loop. We believe in making single-use products that actually aren't single use, that you can collect, you can sanitize, you can grind up, and you can turn back into raw material, and you can repeat. And so that's always been, our vision: plant-based and, material science innovation, and then closed loop.
Right.
But yeah, that's Misha. I don't know if you want to
Yeah.
go on.
Yeah, and I'll also add, because it's probably true, but correct me if I'm wrong, but that's 9% of all the plastic that tries to get recycled. And then there's different types of plastics, and some plastics are more recyclable than others. So the
Right.
ones that are made from a red solo cup or whatever that is polystyrene, 0.01%, right, eventually probably gets recycled of that. And then in terms of other stats on the red cup, we've done a number of kind of quantity exercises, I guess, of how many cups are used on college campuses alone each year. And we keep getting, between 8 to 10 billion
Wow.
just on college campuses, just by students.
That's
So,
crazy.
in the US.
Yeah.
That's a very interesting fact. It makes me think about the cultural impact of red cups. For many, red cups evoke positive emotions and memories, whether it's going to a party, tailgating, or being at a barbecue. It's very much ingrained in American culture, especially on college campuses. How do you overcome that and start changing consumer behavior? How do you create the same emotional attachment to Earth cups as consumers currently have to red solo cups?
If I could start here, just because
Yeah.
I spoke with someone earlier today, and he lives in California now, and he works for a venture capital company, and he said, look, every time, at least I and many of my friends now see a solo cup, we associate it with a frat party or a
Yeah.
girls' college party.
Totally.
And
Right.
he said, look, I want to have some, drinks or a party with some other of my friends in finance or consulting or whatever. And they're like, look, we want to play beer pong, but we don't want to have red cups, right? Or and glasses, maybe reusable, and you can't play games with it. So there's no really in between yet. And I think creating that brand and that feeling is what we're trying to do, right? It's not just a party cup that you leave the party and you're drunk or whatever, and you throw it on the ground, right? It's that a feeling that you want to associate with being clean and sustainable and responsible at the same time.
Yeah, it's funny because I talked with someone earlier today too, who's based in California, but he's actually English. And we were also talking about, the red cup and what it means to consumers. And, about this exact question. Even him growing up in London, he saw the red cup, and he immediately associated with college parties and drinking and this US,
Yeah.
iconic American thing.
Right.
And it's hard to argue at that, right? Like, red cups, used to look cool in photos, and they used to kind of like signal cool, edgy, whatever. And now, as Misha's saying, I think that's been kind of knocked down a couple pegs, where they're this, kind of one-dimensional cup that isn't really multi-purpose, isn't really versatile, right? You can't use a red cup at a wedding, or you can't use it at a, a kind of a maybe a picnic, or you might not want to, right? Versus an Earth cup, or some sustainable alternative. It means something more. And it's more versatile. You can use it at a college party. You can also use it at, at a nice event. So, I think our approach there is kind of dual pronged. On the one hand, it's trying to make people feel or very conscious about their decisions, and having them really recognize and feel something when they do
Yeah.
use a red cup or some other
Right.
cheap plastic cup that isn't either compostable or even recyclable. So that's the one side. And then the other side is about our cups. We want people to have a guilt-free option that inspires them and signals that they care about the environment, and that it's good to care about the environment. And so, I think we sometimes delicately, sometimes not so delicately, try to do those two things.
And I love that new generation, especially your generation, is turning so many of these things on its head, right? Like you're really rethinking about like what these things mean, like red cups with maybe even like Dimitri and I, or people older than us, we see it and we think one thing. And, the hope is like your generation and everybody who comes after looks at plastic and says, heck no, right? We're not going to use that.
It's not super surprising to me. You look at the data on millennials and Gen Z, and overwhelmingly it says that a super high percentage of both care about sustainability, and a super high percentage of both are willing to pay more for it. So that's no surprise to me. And that's of course a good thing, right? That means that, okay, maybe there is hope. Maybe, that'll encourage the private sector and companies to, incorporate more sustainable practices and to come out with more products that, really care about the environment, or even, carbon negative, so that's encouraging. But what we find even more interesting is that there's a huge disconnect right now about even companies that are eco-friendly or sustainable and consumers. And the majority of consumers say that they would pay more for sustainability, but that they're not always sure what's sustainable and what's not.
Yeah.
And that a lot of the messaging around various products is confusing, deliberately or not, who knows, but that it's confusing. And so we've tried to be very clear and straightforward with our messaging and with our branding and with what we stand for. And of course, it's a work in progress. We're, a young company and two young guys, but we're constantly trying to provide education around the products, and we're trying to signal to consumers what we care about, how they can dispose of our cups. We're actually going to, launch a cup that has a QR code on it. You can scan it and you can find, different places to dispose of it. You can find ways to dispose of it, and you can find, visual impact.
And I just want to add to Pete's point, right? Like day one, it's been, let's make this very simple that a 3-year-old can understand, right? A blue cup, recyclable, green cup, plant-based, compostable, and that's that. And if you look at our packaging and the colors we use and all that, I mean, I think that's at the essence of it, right? Because again, it goes back to the triangle symbol and the 7 numbers there, and only 2 of them are recyclable. And it's just so much confusion that's created around the whole industry that we're trying to clear up.
Yeah, it's super confusing. Right. One, around just like what the policies all mean, right? Like, what the triangles and the numbers, like which numbers are recyclable, which ones are not. Like, and when you see something that's certified, or not even certified, that says it's sustainable, like what does that really mean? That in itself is so confusing. And then there's such a black box around like what actually happens behind the scenes, right? Like I put something in a recycling container. Where does that go? What happens to it? Is that actually coming back into another product? Like no one really knows what happens there. And I feel like that all the mystery really discourages some people from even attempting, to recycle and compost whatever to begin with. Like, what do you think needs to change to make that more transparent and to inspire more confidence maybe in everyday consumers?
First of all, great question. And I go back to that stat, right, where it starts at 9.5% of plastic, that's recyclable gets recycled. And then 7 years later, you'd expect it to, improve, right? All these different, trends of sustainability and tailwinds in the industry are going on, yet it declines, to about 5%. And I think a lot of that is that kind of the chain is a little broken, right? Like, we toss it in our recycling bin, someone picks that up, someone then dumps it at a recycling thing, and then they can, they have to sort it, and some of it's recyclable, some of it's not, some of it gets contaminated, whatever it is. And so, for us, the way we think about that and one kind of fix is to do it all ourselves, or at least control the whole process. And so, obviously we have this college brand. We sell a lot, straight to kind of younger next gen consumers, but we also work with businesses and, everything from small bars and restaurants to, larger venues like stadiums and coffee chains and hotels. And ultimately what we want to do is we want to work with those large venues, and we want to set up either, compost collection programs, or we want to set up closed loop collection programs. So, picture bins around a stadium, right? And you toss your Earth cup after you've used it into that bin. And it's very clear with the messaging on the cups, on the bins, and around the stadium that that's where your cup goes. And then, we collect those cups and we either, clean and repurpose them, or, as good, we make sure they're composted. And, we've been building out, dozens of composting partners that have facilities across the United States, who accept our cups and, are eager to work with us. And we have that network, now available. And, it's just a matter of partnering with them and finding, businesses and venues who care about sustainability and want to, displace whatever cheap plastic they're using for, our products. And then, trying to be all hands on and supporting them, because ultimately they're not going to make the switch and they're not going to do it, unless it's relatively easy, unless it doesn't reflect or represent a huge change in their behaviors and in their supply chain. So, I don't know, Misha, that's how I think about it. I don't know if you want to add anything.
Yeah, no, I think on the B2B level too, like that really is the way to do it. And then on the individual level, I think I guess your question essentially is, how do you build more trust in consumers around recycling and composting? And again, there's just a lot of misleading information or uncertainty of what's going on. So I think it comes back to our original idea, which is to really build a brand that people can trust and rely on, and say, look, if this is an Earth cup or if this is an Earth brand product, we know it's degradable in your home backyard, or we know that this is fully recyclable at a recycling facility. And building excitement around the brand and the products that we're providing, I think could also hopefully, encourage and excite some users to actually recycle and compost more. But there's no silver bullet.
Yeah. And Penny, you kind of alluded to this, but like, I think, a lot of the issue comes with the mystery around recycling and the mystery around what happens to these products, right? Like, is this even going to get recycled if I toss it in here? Do I have to clean out these cups before an MRF will accept them? And, people don't know, and it's pretty deliberate, from a lot of manufacturers that people shouldn't know, or that, the mystery around it is good for their business. So we want to flip that on its head, and we want to, be direct with consumers. We want to educate. We want to, help connect them with places to compost their cups, and to, find facilities that'll, take the cups and turn them into soil and provide the metrics about, their change. And, a lot of the universities we sell to or work with, they'll have compost bins around campus. And that's excellent, right? Like Williams College, for example, where we went, there's compost bins in every single dorm. So if we had a party or some friends over and we used 100 cups, we'd compost them after we'd use them. And that's a great feeling. It's a really bad feeling when you use a couple hundred red cups and they're plastic and you toss them into a trash, and they're going to end up in a landfill and exist for 2,000 years. And on the flip side, it's a really good sign, or really good feeling rather, when you use Earth cups and then, dispose of them properly and ensure that, they're going to get composted and they're going to turn into soil in about 90 days.
Yeah.
You bring up an interesting point, and it's one area that I think doesn't get as much attention as it should. And that's the gap in the waste management infrastructure that we have in the US. It's clear that consumer demand for more sustainable products is growing and will continue to grow in the future. But I think the positive effect can't be fully realized unless consumers are able to properly dispose of these products. And that will require a major overhaul of the waste management infrastructure that we have in place right now. What do you think about that point?
We've decided to focus more on the product and material side of things, and growing a brand to educate consumers and sort of motivate them, as opposed to the actual infrastructure side of things. But I think it's, without one, you can't do the other.
Yeah, for sure. But and I think to Misha's point there, which is a good one, like, we think if you get everyone on board with using compostables and going plant-based, and, make that kind of the norm, or at least the ideal, then the composting infrastructure and then the recycling infrastructure is going to catch up. And, obviously some of these stats are kind of, almost depressing, but, I do think there's light at the end of the tunnel, and I do think there are, exceptional companies, throughout the private sector, who are working on some really cool solutions. And again, we want to be on the material side of thing and the brand side of thing, and kind of bridge the
Yeah.
gap between the people who are developing the polymers and the consumers who want products that are better for the environment. And then, someone on the other side of the consumer, is really going to work to, improve that infrastructure and make sure that, those collection rates go up and the contamination rates go down. And we'll be there for it, right? We want to help businesses do that. We want to help, individuals do that. And ultimately, we're all going to have to pretty soon.
I want to switch topics for a bit and talk about your business model. Over the past few months, you've developed some great relationships with 818 Tequila and Snack TBH. How are you leveraging these partnerships to expand your presence and build awareness?
We're lucky that companies like 818 and like Snack TBH have increasingly cared more about sustainability, right? And it's everything from their, their own manufacturing processes to throwing events, right? Like 818 Tequila, they do tastings, they do promotional events, and they need single-use cups. And so we've made them single-use cups. We've co-branded with them. We've done fun, exciting stuff around that. And there's of course other examples too, but I think for us, we've always come at it with the approach of we want to help these companies become more sustainable. And if these companies want to become more sustainable, it's obviously a good thing. And we should therefore help them market it and brand it and tell a story around it to their consumers, right? Who ultimately will care about this sort of thing. And, if you're a tequila drinker and you see 818 has refined their process and they've added a bunch of sustainability initiatives, and then, they've made the switch to plant-based cups, and, they have usable metrics about how that switch is going to affect their carbon output and whatnot. That's going to go a long way with consumers, right? That's what the data shows. That's what we all know and feel. So that's kind of how we approach and think about it. But Dimitri, we're still, we're always, still trying to figure out how to get the most out of them.
Long term, what do you want to end up? Do you want to be a B2B or B2C focused company?
We're in a cool spot because most of our brand is consumer based. It's, about college kids. It's about the young next generation, group who cares about this sort of thing. But we sell a lot B2B, and we do a lot of, kind of work and outreach and sales there. So I think, there's a lot of room for us to expand in both, and both industries are both markets are pretty huge and massive. So I guess it's about picking one or picking niches in both that, really work most for us, and that we think we can, get the most out of consumers and out of buyers, and have our products kind of make the most impact.
We want to make as big of an impact as we can. So whether that's selling to businesses or consumers, and all of them use cups, right? Let's try to do that. There's retail. That's perfect, right? Right now you go in, you only see solo cups on the shelves. There's no other eco-friendly option. Why is that? So we want to be there. We want to help stadiums. We want to help coffee chains, and we want to help college students.
What was the feedback when you first started talking to investors, and what lessons did you learn from those early conversations?
Honestly, I think for us, we had this idea, and we had tried to, put it into fruition, but we didn't really, I mean, we didn't know what we were doing at all, but we also really didn't know whether we had legs, right? Whether, it was going to peter out in a month, or whether it was going to, build and build and build. And a lot of that feedback, both positive and negative in the early days, I think kind of lit a fire under us and kept us going. Misha, I don't know if you want to talk to that any more too.
Yeah, no, yeah. I think in the early days, we reached out to a lot of alumni, and we're getting a lot of questions about the business model and what we were doing. And in the very beginning, we didn't have good answers to any of it. But the more we did it, the more we were thinking about the business, and the more we realized, okay, this is what we haven't thought of yet. And that's helped a lot. And then as time progressed, more and more investors started becoming more interested. And there were some investors that just didn't understand it. But when sometimes we get on calls with investors, they're like, okay, we get it. This makes sense to us, and this is where the world's going. And we totally want to help you. I think increasingly more and more people are getting it finally.
And
Yeah.
and in those early days too, like Misha said, we didn't know how to pitch. Yeah, we had our idea. Yeah, we were passionate. We
Yeah.
thought we had a vision and, kind of general notion of where we wanted to take it. But, we sometimes look back today, and it's a fun exercise. I encourage other founders and people to do it. But we look back today sometimes at, the earliest decks and the earliest emails we sent out and all that. And,
Yeah.
it brings us a good chuckle, because usually for better, we couldn't have been more off. We'd say, oh, we want to, sell 1 million cups next year. And of course,
Yeah.
we've done a lot more than that, and stuff like that. And it's always exciting. And like Misha said, it was often those people in the early days who really pushed us. They're like, well, where's your business model? Where's your cash flow? Where's your this? Where's your that? And, we didn't have any of it, or we didn't know. And we just, kind of had 100,000 cups that we had made, and we're sitting in Misha's garage ready to be sold. Of course, all those questions, all that feedback, mostly the negative ones too, kind of pushed us to, kind of solidify everything and, keep working at it.
I mean, it takes time to like learn that stuff, right? And understand like what investors really want to hear, what kind of things you need to highlight, and how to pitch your story. And it's amazing that you were even doing that in college when most other people were participating in the problem that you were trying to solve.
Yeah, and it was, I think again, it was a learning curve with investors. We kind of, I think, slowly learned that balance of telling investors, what they want to hear, and what realizing what they actually care about. And of course, it's different for every investor,
Yeah.
but also just being completely honest and transparent with our vision and where we want to take the company. And, I think we could have been more, like, had we been better at pitching, had we had more advice from different folks, we would have been more strategic in the early days. But I'm actually glad we weren't, because I think we might have gotten less money, but we got the right money on board. We got people who actually believe in myself and in Misha and in our vision, versus people who want, X% return in 3 years, no matter what. And, I think we're really grateful and lucky for that, and grateful and appreciative of our team and group of investors. Um, and, uh, and yeah, I think, sometimes it does probably pay off to just be true to yourself and true to your mission and true to, kind of your goals and vision for everything. Because it would have been easier. And some people told us to do this. They said, go say you're going to do this, and this is your exit strategy, and this is this, and we were kind of like, that's not us. Our goal is to build this into, X, Y, and Z. And, and in 10 years, who knows?
Yeah. What is your long-term vision with Earth Brands? Do you want to expand into more products? Do you want to overtake solo cups?
We don't love to set super long-term goals, just because we actually think they can be limiting sometimes, even if they're super lofty or out there.
Interesting.
We
Yeah.
like to live kind of day to day, week to week. So much can change so quickly when you're in our business, and when you're at our, kind of young, small, early stage.
Yeah.
But of course, we have big goals and ambitions, and, ultimately, like Misha said, it all comes back to impact. How much can we disrupt this industry? How many, petroleum-based cups can we displace? And ultimately, everything else falls from there. And, whether it's product expansion, which is absolutely something we think about every day, both in terms of new cups with new materials, and also in terms of new products out of similar materials, or whatever. We think about both, and we're moving into both, which is exciting. Or whether it's a different market approach. Should we go into retail? Should we do grocery? Should we do online? Should we push more B2B? Should we sell to stadiums, or should we sell to coffee chains? Like, we're constantly thinking about all of those. And I think, it'll be fun and enticing to see how it plays out. But, I wouldn't say we have an exact vision. The way we see it is that single-use plastics is huge in the US. Like,
Yeah.
there's over 120 billion single-use cups used in the US each year, and about 40 billion of those are single-use plastic. And right now, less than 1% of that is plant-based. So less than 1% of plastic is plant-based. And of course,
Yeah.
that's supposed to grow to 25+% in the next, 5 to 10 years. So it's a really exciting space to be in. And we do feel like we're helping build out a category that's going to eventually overtake and outlast these companies like Solo and kind of the old plastics manufacturers. But, again, our mission is to make sustainability cool and to displace single-use plastics.
Yeah, just become that brand, right? And that people can look up to and trust and associate with doing good for the environment. And I think replacing 10 billion Solo cups on college campuses would be pretty cool.
That would be very cool.
As you work toward that vision, what principles drive you on a day-to-day basis?
I think our foothold into the industry and the way we kind of made a name for ourselves was through our brand. And, I think something around that was, we never want to compromise on that. We never want to, to take a sacrifice or dilute that. So I think, our focus was on that. And then, having clear principles and a really good culture around that. And I think we've really cared about that. And this has been a big thing Misha's done, probably more than myself, but, making our company a really fun place to work, and a place where, college kids across the country want to join us, want to join the company, want to join the movement,
Right.
whether it's becoming a brand ambassador, of which we have over 2,500 now, whether it's becoming a campus manager who then, serves as a point person for those people, whether it's applying to become, an intern, maybe on our design team, on our marketing team, on our social media team, or whether it's joining us full time. And what's awesome to see, is how much the brand and the company and its mission resonates with those people who, like us, were college kids or are still college kids who want or wanted an eco-friendly alternative, for a cup to drink out of on a daily basis. When we get, 200 applications for summer interns, I'm like, I have to pinch myself to be like, is that real? Are we actually, getting kids across the country who want to come, get involved and be a part of this? And for me, that's been the most rewarding part for sure.
Another big principle that we've kind of have been hounding on, at least in the past year and at least in the early days, is sort of to make an impact faster. You never want to turn down a customer, never say no to a request. They won't be buying plastic, they'll be buying plant-based.
Right.
And at least it's that marginal quick difference. And so I think having that mindset and just continuing to work as fast as we can and not wasting time is not only helping obviously the business, but again, the impact.
This has been a fascinating discussion. One last question. If our listeners want to try Earth Cups, what's the best way to do it?
Yeah. Right now our retail presence isn't huge. We're in a couple, New York City based, grocery chains, and then in some, small liquor stores around college campuses. So I'd say the best way is through our website, earthbrands.earth. And pretty soon, again, under wraps, but we'll be launching with a couple of the, quick grocery, immediate goods companies. So look out for that on the near horizon. The idea came from a lot of college kids. We were getting direct messages on Instagram from kids saying, hey, I want your cups, but I need them tonight for a party. And your website says it takes, a day or two to ship. We use X or Y, app here at our campus. Can you get Earth Cups on there? So we've spent a couple months trying to do that, and we're launching on 2 of them pretty soon. So keep an eye out for that, and eventually you'll be able to get them in minutes.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, Misha and Peter, thank you both so much for joining us today. That was a very, very interesting and insightful discussion, and super happy for your success, and congrats again for making on to Forbes 30 under 30. Very well deserved. We will be keeping an eye out on the great things to come.
Yeah, thank you, Penny, and Dimitri. Thanks for having us on, and questions were super thoughtful and insightful. So we always appreciate that, and we had fun chatting with you guys, and we appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys.
This concludes our interview with Misha and Peter from Earth Brands. Thank you all for listening. Please subscribe for more episodes of Consumer Rundown podcast and visit us at consumerrundown.com. See you next time.